Did you know that for nearly a century, Egypt was ruled by kings from Nubia, a kingdom south of Egypt? This is just one of the many forgotten chapters in African history, a history far older, more diverse, and more impactful than commonly understood. Today, we embark on a chronological journey, a continent-wide timeline that unearths the rise and fall of regional civilizations, the complex dance of trade systems, the echoes of massive migrations, the grandeur of empires, the profound influence of religions, the brutal reality of colonialism, and the inspiring struggles for independence. Our story begins in deep antiquity. Around 3100 BC, Upper and Lower Egypt were unified under Nama, marking the dawn of dynastic Egypt. This era witnessed the construction of monumental pyramids, symbols of centralized pharaonic power and sophisticated state administration. From 2686 to 2181 BC, the Old Kingdom flourished. After a period of fragmentation, the Middle Kingdom emerged around 2055 BC, with Thebes rising as a dominant power. The New Kingdom, beginning around 1550 BC, saw the expulsion of the Hyksos and a resurgence of Egyptian power. But Egypt's story wasn't isolated. South of Egypt, the kingdom of Kama, and later Napata, rose to prominence in Nubia between 1000 and 300 BC. These Nubian kingdoms weren't mere tributaries, they were powerful rivals. In fact, from 747 to 656 BC, the 25th dynasty of Egypt was ruled by Kushite kings, including the notable rulers Pi, Shabaka, Shabitku, and Tahaka. This period is often overlooked in traditional narratives of Egyptian history. Moving westward along the Mediterranean coast, around 814 BC, Carthage was founded by Dido, or Elisa, in present-day Tunisia. Carthage grew into a major maritime power, challenging Rome for dominance in the region. However, in 146 BC, Rome decisively destroyed Carthage at the end of the Third Punic War, marking the end of Carthaginian power. Our timeline leaps eastward to the Horn of Africa. Around the 1st century CE, the Aksumite kingdom rose in present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Aksum wasn't a peripheral kingdom, it was a major Red Sea commercial power, trading with Rome, India, and Arabia. Around 330 CE, King Ezana of Aksum adopted Christianity, making Aksum one of the earliest Christian states in the world. The 7th century CE witnessed a transformative shift as Islam spread into North Africa, following the Arab conquests beginning in 639 CE in Egypt. This new faith would profoundly shape the region's culture, politics, and trade networks. From the 8th to the 11th centuries, the trans-Saharan trade intensified, linking North Africa to West African states. Salt, gold, textiles, and tragically, enslaved people flowed across the desert, creating wealth and fostering cultural exchange. In West Africa, around 1235 CE, the Mali Empire was founded after Sandiata Keita defeated Sumaoro Kante at the Battle of Kirina. Mali rose to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful empires in the region. The pilgrimage of Mansa Musa, the ruler of Mali, to Mecca between 1324 and 1325 CE, is legendary. His entourage, laden with vast quantities of gold, caused such inflation in Cairo that Arab chroniclers like Al-Umari described the gold supply in the city as being disrupted for years. From approximately 1464 to 1591 CE, the Songhai Empire became the dominant power in West Africa, succeeding Mali. However, in 1591 CE, Morocco defeated Songhai at the Battle of Tondibai, ending Songhai's imperial dominance and ushering in a period of fragmentation. Moving south, in the 11th century CE, Great Zimbabwe emerged as a major center in southern Africa. This stone-built city was a political and economic hub linked to Indian Ocean trade, particularly in gold and ivory. To the east, in 1270 CE, the Solomonic dynasty began in Ethiopia with Yokuno Amlak, claiming descent from the biblical King Solomon. This dynasty would rule Ethiopia for centuries. The late 15th century marked a turning point with the arrival of Europeans on the African coast. Between 1497 and 1498 CE, Vasco da Gama sailed around the Cape of Good Hope and reached India, opening a sea route that would transform the African coast into a major arena of European expansion. The Portuguese began their maritime expansion along the Atlantic coast in the 15th century. Around 1441 CE, the Portuguese began taking captives from West Africa, an early and brutal moment in the history of the Atlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade, which lasted from the 16th to the 19th centuries, forcibly transported an estimated 12.5 million Africans, with roughly 10.7 million surviving to disembark in the Americas. This horrific trade had a devastating impact on African societies, economies, and demographics. The abolition of the slave trade was a gradual and uneven process spanning from the 1810s to the 1890s. Even after abolition, illegal trafficking continued for decades. In 1830 CE, France invaded Algeria, starting a conquest that became one of the longest and most brutal colonial wars in Africa. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 formalized European rules for claiming African territory. No African state was invited as a sovereign equal. The conference unleashed the scramble for Africa, a period of rapid colonization by European powers between the 1880s and 1914. By the early 20th century, almost the entire continent was under European control. A notable exception was Ethiopia, which decisively defeated Italy at the Battle of Odwa in 1896 under Emperor Menelik II and Empress Tetu-Batul, preserving its independence. From 1899 to 1902, the Second Anglo-Boer War reshaped South Africa, ultimately leading to the formation of the Union of South Africa under British dominion in 1910. World War I, from 1914 to 1918, redrew colonial holdings, with German colonies in Africa being seized by other European powers. Between 1935 and 1936, Italy invaded Ethiopia under Mussolini, occupying the country until 1941. After World War II, anti-colonial movements gained momentum across Africa. Libya became the first African colony to gain independence in the post-war wave in 1951. In 1952, Egypt's monarchy was overthrown in the Free Officers' Revolution led by Muhammad Naguib and Gamal Abdel Nasser. Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African colony to gain independence in 1957, led by Kwame Nkrumah. 1960 was the Year of Africa, with 17 African states gaining independence. These included Nigeria, Somalia, Senegal, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad, Central African Republic, Congo, Gabon, Madagascar, Mauritania, Benin, and Ivory Coast. In 1963, the Organization of African Unity was founded in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to promote unity and cooperation among African states. Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde gained independence in 1975 after protracted anti-colonial wars. Zimbabwe became independent in 1980 after the Lancaster House Agreement. Namibia gained independence from South African rule in 1990. Apartheid ended in South Africa in 1994, with the first universal franchise elections bringing Nelson Mandela to power. South Sudan became independent in 2011 after a referendum following decades of war. Today, intensified conflicts involving groups such as Boko Haram in Nigeria highlight the continuing legacy of weak post-colonial borders, poverty, and state fragility. Africa's history is a complex tapestry woven from threads of ancient civilizations, vibrant trade networks, colonial exploitation, and resilient struggles for liberation. It's a history that deserves to be known, understood, and celebrated in all its richness and complexity.